All right, we're live here, live and direct, Africa Enlightenment Center. You're all welcome to today's live broadcast. And today we're going to be talking about something very interesting. It is very important that at this time and age that we are in, that people get informed. It is painful that a whole lot of people, even in billions of people around the world, are misinformed about little things that matter in life. Talk about family, talk about marriage, talk about society, talk about gender, a whole lot of issues, little things that you can easily get information, and then you live your life and make your life easy. But because these people do not rely on the information that has been made available through science, they're controlled by the information that they get through religious leaders. And so they are, misinformed. And most times it's willful, and that's the painful part of it. And so Africa Enlightenment Center, we've taken it as a burden to bring to you this information. And those of you who are already informed, it is for you to help us to spread this information so that people can get informed. Once again, you're welcome to the Africa Enlightenment Center debate and discussion series, where we're going to be talking about different issues that affect us in the society, especially when it comes to religion, comes to politics, and then societal issues. But today we're going to be talking about something religious that has to do with religious leaders, and that is how religious leaders convey misinformation. And I'm your host, Apostle Genesis. I was a former pastor, but today I'm no longer a pastor, but I'm championing the enlightenment of Africans and other people around the world so that they begin to know things that they don't know before. And they begin to come out of religious slavery and neo-colonialism, especially in Africa. So today we're talking about how religious leaders convey misinformation. And for those who are watching, you have the opportunity to call in, and I've already put up the numbers to call before now. You can, for those who want to call in, to participate, you can call these numbers that you see on your screen. Any of the numbers from any part of the world, you can call and participate. You have an opinion, you have something to say, or you have a question to ask during the live session, you can call in, and we'll be able to answer you. Then also you can drop your comments, and then we'll attend to your comments. So we're talking about how religious leaders convey misinformation. One of the reasons why the world is imbalanced and the world is the way it is because a host of people, billions of people, are misinformed about a lot of things. They're misinformed about a lot of things. Information is power. They always say knowledge is power. You can't live beyond what you know. You can't do anything beyond what you know about it. The way you live your life is determined by the level of information that you have about life in general. And there's a whole lot of information that we need to be able to live successful lives, to be able to live in peace with ourselves and with others also. So when you don't have this information at hand, it is difficult for you, to live well. And so a whole lot of people are misinformed. And one of the reasons is because the source or the sources of information are the problem. And a lot of people are tied to their religious leaders. They get all their information, major information they need to live their lives from their religious leaders. You see that? So they become agents through which their religious leaders convey any kind of information they want to convey to the public, because they are the power of those leaders or those religious leaders. Over the years, there have been a lot of things that religion, made people to believe. but science has proven otherwise. Yet, people still believe those things. Despite the proof, despite all the evidences through science, people still believe a whole bunch of misconceptions and misinformation. So it is time that we begin to open the eyes of these people, share this knowledge so that people can begin to understand the things they don't understand before and know the things they don't know before. All right, so on this series, we're talking about how religious leaders convey misinformation. So still waiting a little for others to join the broadcast. While we wait a little for others to join, you can support this channel financially. You can send us super chats and super thanks to be able to help us to create more content and bring more information to you. We are gearing up to bring more guests, bring people to talk about different issues that affect us in the society, and as a people all around the world, because it is time for us to begin to, spread correct information, spread information that people need to take critical decisions that will help people think critically, because critical thinking is the only way that, especially in Africa and the less developed world, India, all these Asian nations, through information, they can develop through critical thinking, because a lot of people are tied to the apron strings of their religious leaders. Okay, so they become the instrument through which these religious leaders convey, misinformation and trap so many other people. So as these people grow and they get families, give birth to children, they have to indoctrinate their children into, those things. And in the end, they breed another ignorant generation. So it's a continuum over and over. But by the time people begin to get informed and begin to know that most of this information is no longer relevant, society will become better. So I welcome you once again to this live session, talking about how religious leaders convey misinformation. You can drop your comments and opinions. We are going to take them live, read them, and also talk about them. So if you want to call in, the numbers to call in, shortly you will see them again displayed on the screen. You can call these numbers live, you can call in. So let's dive into it. We'll talk about misinformation. What is misinformation? Misinformation is simply false or inaccurate information, especially that which deliberately is intended to deceive. So any information that is intended to deceive, we call it misinformation. Take, for example, during the COVID, that is 2019, 2020, a lot of pastors came out to say that it was an agenda, by world leaders to depopulate, the world. And some African pastors or preachers said it was to depopulate Africa and all that. And a prominent pastor, came out to say that COVID was caused by 5G, which was a lie, which was a huge lie. But do you know that millions of Christians believed in it? They believed that what this man was saying is true. Until today, there are people who still believe that it was 5G that was the cause of COVID, that they locked people in so that they can lay 5G cables. But the funny thing is, this same preacher who made this statement, who said these things, did not apologize, and his followers did not hold him accountable. They still worship him till today. And you know what? He was one of the first preachers or pastors to start using this same 5G that he claimed was the cause of COVID. You see that? So what was the reason? What was the reason why his followers could not hold him accountable, or why his followers still follow him today and still worship him today and still believe in him today? We're going to look at some of these reasons quite shortly, because today's live is not going to be a very long one. So during the COVID also, in Africa, churches were locked down, not just in Africa, all over the world. Churches, large gatherings, not only churches, even clubs, social clubs were locked down. You see that? People were quarantined. And the people that were shouting the loudest or crying the loudest were religious leaders, religious people, religious leaders. They tried to set their members up against the government. What were they saying? They were saying that the government was fighting the church, and so they began to use their members, against the government. There were several protests and all that. So people, till today, people believe a whole lot of, crap about the COVID thing. They don't know that historically there have been pandemics before the one that happened 2019, 2020, COVID-19. There have been pandemics before that time. And we should be grateful to science because we didn't see any God show up from anywhere, whether the God of the Muslims or the God of the Christians or the God of the Hare Krishna or any other God, Zeus or whatever. No God showed up to help anybody. Christians, Muslims, and all religious people depended on this same government that locked down everywhere, depended on science, depended on medicine to be able to, overcome the COVID pandemic that plagued the world. So the lockdown was even to the favor, to the advantage of everybody. But the truth is, these people did not understand it because they were, thoroughly misinformed by their pastors, by their religious leaders, whether Islamic leaders or Christian leaders or whatever religion they belong to. So they were misinformed. Okay, so how do they do it, and why is it so successful in a world like this? You see that one thing I've come to realize and understand is that what a person is born into, it is difficult for that person, to come out of it. A lot of people are born into these religions, and so whatever they've been told, they believe it hook, line, and sinker, and their minds have been programmed, from childhood to adulthood. So it's difficult for them to begin to now assimilate new information. So they become the instrument with which these religious leaders convey any information they want to convey. And all the information they convey, or the false information, it is to their own benefit so that they can use these people to make money for themselves. Okay, so how does it work? Religious leaders use false hope built on an unknown future based on the fear of the unknown to manipulate you to receive the false information they dish out to you. And one of such false hopes has to do with the issue of heaven and hell. And that is the reason why a lot of people cannot challenge their religious leaders, especially when it comes to Christianity and Islam. They cannot challenge them because of the threat of death, the fear of death, the fear of, so-called eternal damnation and all that, because they believe this crap that, the world is going to end and some people are going to be sentenced to eternal judgment. Others are going to be sentenced to, life, everlasting, eternal life and all that. So the rules that they have given to their followers, that if you follow those rules, you are going to have eternal life. If you don't follow those rules, you're not going to have eternal life. And the funny thing is, these followers, they see that most of these leaders don't even follow the rules that they give to them. They don't even follow them. You see it? So why are they still glued to this thing? Because they've been so used to this thing. They believe that. That's one problem with belief. That's the reason why you need to move from belief to knowledge. Okay, and thank goodness for science. Science has helped us. But yet a lot of people jettison science and they begin to, they continue with this misinformation that has been there for thousands of years. Religion was developed, just like science was developed by man, religion was also developed by man. So religion was there because man didn't know. So if religion was based on assumptions, majorly assumptions, through feelings, through dreams, visions, and a lot of things that are not founded on evidence. So, but with the advent of science, religion lost its footing Because a lot of things, for instance, diseases, sicknesses that were attributed to, some supreme beings and all that, we now know the causes of those sicknesses and diseases. Some things that were attributed to some unknown forces, we now understand that there is not any unknown forces that are causing these things. We now know the reason for these things. For instance, you look at the Bible. The Bible says that it is when God is angry, when the Bible God is angry, that the mountains begin to quake and they begin to shake and all that. But through science, we understand that it is because of seismic activity that is going on, under the earth. Volcanic activities. That's the reason why the mountains shake. That's why they quake. Not because a particular God is angry. You see that? But a lot of people still believe that there is a God that is angry, that is causing all of these problems. Like recently, I saw something I think in one of these videos on TikTok and all that. Some of these Christians that are promoting misinformation, telling people that when certain things happen, for instance, a typhoon happens in a country, or there is what do you call this? Typhoons, cyclones, and all that. When they happen, for instance, in Japan, they claim that it's because Japan don't worship, the God of the Bible. They don't believe in God. That's why this is happening. And recently, a friend who is a Christian, I made a post about Japan, how clean Japan is, and Africans should learn that these people, through science and technology and common sense, they've developed their society. He brought up something. What did he bring up? That youth in Japan, a lot of people in Japan are committing suicide and all that because they don't have God, kind of thing, So this is serious misinformation, okay? And this is something that we have to fight against. It is something that we have to fight against, serious misinformation. So cyclones and all these things, they are not caused by the anger of any God. They're caused by the way the earth is structured. Okay, there are so many explanations to that. I'm not a scientist, but you can Google all of that. Why does earthquake happen? You will gain the understanding if you Google up. So there is so much information that is available, but a lot of people don't have access to it. So it is our duty, those of us who are enlightened, to get this information to these people repeatedly. There's power in repetition. And that is one thing that these religious leaders use to convey misinformation: repetition. There's power in repetition. And they have the numbers, So they have the numbers, and they use these people to continuously repeat this information. And when you repeat something over and over and over and over, and people have assimilated it, the tendency to believe it is higher. You get it? So the same strategy we must use to be able to help people to come out of all of this false information, religious information that is everywhere. So a lot of people believe that in those days, they believed that sicknesses were caused by, God, by their gods and all that. The gods are angry, they strike people with sicknesses and all that. But today we know the causes of sickness. For instance, there was a time malaria was so deadly, killing a lot of people. But today, there's treatment for malaria. We know the cause of malaria, that malaria is not caused by the anger of any god. Okay, we know that malaria can be caused by mosquito bites and, lack of hygiene, a whole lot of things that cause malaria and other diseases. So these are things we have come to know. But despite that, a lot of people still live in this misinformation that it is their God, a God in quote, that is the cause of disease and all that. That's why you see people flock to churches, people flock to, our prayer grounds and all that. And when you come to the other religion, when you come to Islam, a lot of people, they believe that there is only one prophet that everybody in the world should listen to, which is their prophet. That's what they've come to believe. And that is, he is the one that has the final message and understanding for man. But when you look at this so-called message, when you dissect it properly, you will discover that most of it is not in line with reality. So the question you need to ask is, how can such a God, if there is such a God, put out such archaic information that is no longer, necessary in this 21st century. And they tell you you can't change it. That is what you have to believe. That is what you have to do, and all of that. And the world has changed. Science and technology has changed the world, even the way we communicate. In those days, there are a lot of things they believe, okay, that are no longer relevant today. Feet washing rituals, a lot of rituals they used to do, they're no longer relevant today. Today, the world is crossbred. In those days, there's a law, especially talk about the Bible, that they should not mingle with other tribes and all. But today, we intermarry. A Japanese person can marry an American can marry an African, Nigerian can marry somebody from the UK and all that. They produce children, and life goes on. So a lot has changed. But yet, so many people still live in this misinformation because of fear. The power of fear is what is used to control these people. So if you are somebody that is still afraid of what life will bring, what is going to happen tomorrow, you're afraid of tomorrow and all of that, then you will be controlled by these religious leaders, and they will use you to convey misinformation. You see that? You will become one of those they use to convey misinformation. You have to kill that fear. Everybody knows that we're going to die someday. Nobody's going to live forever. That is a basic fact. You get it? And, the belief that people are going to come back again, and, and all that, and, there's going to be a rapture. We are going to go to a particular place called heaven, and a particular place called hell. Reality shows us that there is no such a thing. If there is such a God, that created heaven and created a hell for people who do good and all that, and those who do bad will go to hell, those who do good will go to heaven. If there's such a God, he would have showed up himself. He wouldn't need to send a human like me to come and tell me that. And we are told, even in these holy books, that God is omniscient, is omnipotent, is omnipresent, is present everywhere. So why wouldn't he himself tell everybody? Why would he need to send somebody to do that? You see that? That's to tell you that this information is archaic, is no longer relevant. Because in those days there was no science, there was no technology. Man did not know the cause of things around him was happening. And two, some of the elite of that time, they had to develop a system to control people. A system with which they can control people. You see that? So they developed all of these ideologies, all of these laws, rules, and regulations and all that to be able to control people, because when you are not there, you don't know what people are doing. So they're told that there's an unseen eye that sees everything they're doing, that they will account to on a set day of judgment by that unseen eye, by that God that sees from the invisible and all that. So it inculcated a kind of fear in the minds of people so that they can easily be controlled. So that's the reason to control people. That's the reason why all of this was instituted and put in place. You see that? So it is important to understand that religious leaders are only thriving on expired information that is no longer relevant to the world at this time. But it is still working because the foundation that was laid for it is still standing strong in so many societies, especially in Africa. So that foundation needs to be, broken, need to be destroyed. And what is that foundation? The fear of the unknown. The fear of the unknown. So to overcome this scenario, to overcome this problem, one has to deal with the fear of the unknown. Once you are able to deal with the fear of the unknown, you'll be able to break free, from the power of religious leaders, to misinform you or to use you as an agent of misinformation. Like I talked about during the time of the COVID, a lot of people fell for their traps. A lot of people died from ignorance. They died from ignorance. All over the world, there was no pastor or preacher that was able to heal anybody that was infected with COVID. None. None was able to heal. That is to tell you that there is no God out there that they are telling you there's a God, powerful God that can heal and all that. There's no such God anywhere. I'm not saying that, oh, healings or miracles or those things don't happen at all. I'm not saying so, but they are not sustainable. There is no such God that is seated somewhere that is doing all of that. Okay, you have been misled, you have been misinformed. You see that? So these people, they know that majority of humanity do not do research, they do not study, they do not take their time, to learn things. So they use your ignorance against you. What you don't know is what they're using against you. And you don't know because you don't want to know. You don't want to pay attention. And one of the reasons why a lot of people don't want to pay attention, it is because in this religious gathering, that's where they find, self-fulfillment and all that. That's where they find themselves. That's where, they belong, like they belong to a family. So they don't want to offend them. So whatever it is, they just want to flow with it because they don't want to be alone. The fear of isolation. Some of us, before we came out of religion, that fear was there. People will ostracize you, people will hate you and all that. So, but we have to overcome that. You see that? Until you overcome the fear of the unknown, it will be difficult for you to break free. So you must overcome the fear of the unknown. So to overcome the lies of religion, you must overcome the fear of the unknown. You must learn to live with it, that one day you're going to be dead and forgotten. It's going to be over. You're going to die and go. So you must exhaust all your strength, all your energy to live while you are still alive, to do your best, with your life, to affect humanity, to express yourself, your talents, your skills, and all that. So you don't have to be afraid of death. If you are still afraid of death, you are an instrument of manipulation. You'll be used to manipulate yourself and to manipulate others also. So the fear of the unknown, especially the fear of death, you have to overcome it. You have to know that, yes, you're going to die and you're going to go away and all that. You have to overcome this. There are things you have to learn about. You learn about the process of birth. Like what I tell people, if you're afraid that you're going to die, so do you know where you were before you came to this world? You have no consciousness until you were born. So you have to understand that it's the same state you're going to go back to. Death is simply a lack of consciousness, okay? When you're no longer conscious in this physical frame. So it doesn't go beyond that. But the fear of hell and all that, and this hell thing, hell, heaven, and hell thing, is based on even a misunderstanding and misinterpretation of the so-called scriptures from which these preachers preach it, whether in Islam or in Christianity. And of course, you know that, or a lot of people don't even know that most of the things that they, are taught in the Quran, they were taken from the Jewish scriptures and the Bible also. Some of these things were extracted from the Jewish scriptures. We're going to dedicate another day to look at the concepts, Islamic concepts that were taken from Judaism. We're going to dedicate another day to look at, maybe the next live we're going to do is Islamic concepts that were taken from the Jewish Bible, and we're going to look at where they were taken from and all that. We're going to, take some time to look at that. So the concept of heaven and hell is something that has been used to manipulate billions of people even up till today. Till today, especially in Africa, billions of Africans still believe that there's one heaven, and hell somewhere. But none of that exists. With the facts and information that we have today in this 21st century, if you still believe such things, you are an agent of religious leaders through which they are conveying misinformation. Because every of their doctrines, every of their beliefs, every of the things they believe is built on that fear, is built on that concept, is built on that understanding that there's a God somewhere who punishes people who do right and rewards people who do punishes people who do wrong and rewards people who do right. And what is right and wrong? They have written some laws, some rules to define right and wrong. You get it? So people are tied up with that. For you to be free, the fear of death, the fear of heaven or hell and all that, you need to kill it. You need to know that you came to this world to live your life and then go. So you must kill that fear. If you do not kill that fear, it will be used to what? To manipulate you. So we're talking about how religious leaders convey misinformation. I'm waiting for your comments. You can comment your opinion, or you want to join the live through a phone call. The phone numbers to call, I've been putting it up for you to call to be able to be part of the session. So you remember to send us super chats and super thanks to encourage us to bring more content to you. There's so much more that is loaded. Like I said, the next live session, we're going to be talking about some concepts, Islamic concepts that were borrowed from Judaism, that were borrowed from the Jewish, books and all that. So it's important that we do this thing so that people get informed, because when people around you are informed, your life becomes easier. You see that? Because if there's religious violence or any kind of violence that is negated by religion around you, you'll be affected, in the area where you live. So if everybody in the world is informed, the world will become a better place. A few people got informed and we got science and technology. So when more people are informed, with the right kind of information, we will have a better society. Okay, we're going to have a better society. So it is important that you know that this world that you are in is not governed by any god from anywhere that is in the outer space. If there was such a god, he or she or whatever would have showed up by now. Okay, it would have showed up. Let's take this call. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? All right. I'm waiting for your calls. The numbers to call are +234-8061277699 and also +234-90-2627-6473. You can be a part of this live session, because it is important that there are a lot of people that are watching this live session right now. You are informed. So it's important that you join your voice so that others can be informed. There is power in majority, and that is one thing that these religious leaders use. You see that? They have the majority of people who believe in them, what they say. They don't care what every other person says. They don't care what the facts are. That's why sometimes when we argue with religious people, when we discuss with them, we're showing them the facts. We're showing them the physical evidence, and they tell you no, because they believe that there's something beyond that physical evidence that they're seeing that they've not seen. They've not even seen it, but they believe it exists. They've not even seen it. And they believe, and they can't prove it. They have nothing to show for it, but they just believe it is because somebody told them a God said so. You can see how bad the situation is. So there's a whole lot of work to do. Those of you watching in your neighborhood, engage people. Those of you who are already informed, engage people and help to inform people. Let's rid this world of this kind of ignorance, because it is one of the reasons why there's so much inequality in the world, because a whole bunch of people, billions of people, are being controlled by a few persons. Okay, you see these religious leaders, especially Islam and Christianity. Look at their numbers in the world. They are in the billions. Christians are in billions. Muslims are in billions in the world. And all that. Though there are some that are moderate, there are some that are radical, amongst them, whether Christians or Muslims and all that. And these, especially the radical ones, are the ones that can constitute a huge problem in the world today. They are used for politics, to dissuade the people, to control the people, to rule the people. For instance, in Christianity, there are a whole lot of Christian denominations that do not participate in politics. They don't participate in politics. They believe politics is demonic or is evil. It's not until a few years ago that some denominations started, adapting gradually and reinterpreting some portions of the Bible, to now begin to enter into politics. So how can the world actually move forward when billions of people are tied up with religious misinformation? It's a huge problem in the world. We face a huge problem, huge crisis. Look at what is happening in the UK right now. The UK is almost been taken over by, Islamists. Even the US and some other countries are almost been taken over by Islamists. They believe that the world belongs to them. But the world doesn't belong to anybody. They believe the world was given to them by their God. They are the ones to take charge. They want to rule. Even Christians believe the same thing. They are the ones to rule the world, to take charge of the world and all that. So that belief is there. That misinformation is there. That misunderstanding of how the world functions or what happens in the world, that thing is there. So it is important that we understand that what we have before us is huge. The battle is huge, if I call it a battle, against misinformation. The battle against ignorance is a very huge battle and is a very serious one. And we have to take it seriously to be able to nip it in the bud. It is very, very important. So it is time that we begin to spread the right kind of information, to make people know that there is no heaven or hell fire anywhere. People have to live by common sense and reason. And that is what has brought the world to this place we are in, that we can use technology. So people started thinking outside the box and thinking we can solve this problem. It is not because a God said so, a God did this and all that. If we just look at the world, if we still believed that diseases were caused by a particular God who is angry, that somebody danced the way he's not supposed to dance, or somebody did something he's not supposed to do and all that, what would have happened to the population of the world by now? Just think of the numbers of people. We have vaccines for different kind of diseases. We have drugs for different kind of diseases. Yet, people are still dying in their numbers. And most of the people that are still dying in their numbers like that are still based on ignorance. They've been, misinformed about a whole lot of things. There's even a Christian denomination that refuses blood transfusion. And I've seen people die because of that. There was a friend, a lady that was a friend some time ago, that had a young baby, at hand. She had a sister that was sick. They were members of that religious organization that forbid blood transfusion. And you know what happened? That young girl died in hospital because she refused to take blood. The parents refused her being given blood. And that was how she died. You can see that? You see that? And why is it continuing? Because the people have not woken up. When the people wake up and know that there's nothing wrong with blood transfusion, there's no God that is angry, at blood transfusion, or that blood transfusion transmits some diseases or some things that will make you not to go to heaven or hell, whatever reason they give for it. When people begin to know that there's nothing like that, and majority of people around these persons, are informed to that level, you discover that these people will have no option than to join the bandwagon of informed people. You see that? Because, for instance, in Africa, there are so many people that are uninformed. They don't have access to, the right information. And those who have access to the right information, they are not doing enough to convey this information to these people. Now think about it. Just see the number of pastors and preachers that are online, that own TV stations, that have huge social media following. Think about it, that people who have common sense, who have understanding, are more than them and have bigger social media following. what will happen. The little we've been able to do, in down the line in a few years, especially from during the COVID, at least that exposed a lot of things, and a lot of people started thinking, and a lot of people took to social media and started informing people. The more we are, the better. You see that? Because we'll be able to reach more people and be able to keep the people glued, because these pastors, these teachers, they make it compulsory for people to gather in churches, in mosques, to receive this information over and over and over. So there's always a reprogramming with the same information over and over and over and over. So they're running with that information, they're working with that information. It's always there. They're always putting it there. So it is time we invade the social media space, not just social media space, the communities, set up learning center, educational centers, not just the conventional traditional schooling system, but information centers where people are informed. We go from place to place and inform people. That is the vision that we have at the Africa Enlightenment Center, and we need your support. If you want to join us, you can join this channel. You see the join button there, and you can send us support, because there's so much we are ready to do, and we need your support to do that. So we're going to be rounding up today's live session. If you have in any way this live session has impacted you or has strengthened your resolve, if you are somebody that is informed, that is willing to convey the right information to people, you can support this channel with super thanks, to help us grow, our super chats. You can send us super chats or super thanks. So it is important that we begin to tell people the truth. Whatever religious leaders are telling people, we have to tell them the truth about it. We have to begin to bring out all the misinformation. Like I talked about heaven and hell, talk about tithing, talk about giving, misconceptions about giving, misconceptions about marriage, misconceptions about gender, misconceptions about a whole lot of things that we need to begin to bring to the fore to let people know the truth about these things. We begin to show them evidences and make them understand the reason why they should jettison those information. For instance, in those days, especially in Africa, female genital mutilation, there were campaigns, against female genital mutilation, and it's no longer, in vogue, except maybe some very typical villages that are still, holding on to it. But a lot of women have, resisted it and all that, because there was an intensive campaign against it. The same way, we have to intensify the campaign against these, misinformations, the beliefs that there is heaven and hell that is used to control these people that become the agent of conveying misinformation through these religious leaders. So take, for instance, the whole world now knows that there is no heaven and hell anywhere. That there is no God up there in the sky that's controlling the affairs of men and all that. When people know all these things, take, for instance, the billions of people that believe in the lies that there is one God up there in the sky, that believe that there is heaven and hell, that believe in all those things. Take, for instance, that those people are now, maybe just about 50% of them are now informed and now know that such things don't exist. What will happen to the world? There will be a huge change in the world. The world will become better. I tell you that the world will become better. So it is important that we begin to deconstruct all of this information that these religious leaders are putting out, to cage these people. And most of all, they're using it for their own benefits, to make money from these people and all that. You can go down history, how religion has been used to make money, especially through the Roman Catholic Church, how they sold indulgences and how they did a whole lot of this, a whole lot of it. But it's still happening today. Why? Because the foundation has not been touched. The foundation has not been pulled down. The foundation has not been torn down. And to tear that foundation, we need more people. We need more hands. We need more people to begin to speak up. We need more people to deconstruct and begin to, open the eyes of people around them, all around the globe, to make people understand. We need to engage these religious leaders. We need to engage them. We need to, begin to engage the people also. Open the eyes of the people. Make them see that these things are lies. The world has moved beyond that. Those things were the time when there was no knowledge, there was no information. People, were led by what they felt, what they saw, maybe in dreams or visions. They were just led by that. They didn't even care to interpret or understand what they were seeing. So they just believed, what they were seeing or what they felt, was the situation and all that. But today, with scientific methods of testing things, we now know that most of those things are not true. You see that? So it is important that we begin to engage people to think critically. When people begin to think critically, they'll begin to overcome all of these things. So once again, this is Africa Enlightenment Center. We are here to enlighten the public, enlighten people politically, on religious issues also, and then on societal issues. Today, we've been talking about how religious leaders convey misinformation and what we need to do to be able to stem that tide. So you can support this channel and you can reach us also on WhatsApp. That is the WhatsApp number. You can see that on the screen right now. Anytime you watch the video, you see the number. You can always reach out to us on WhatsApp. You can support us. We need a lot of gadgets to be able to do what we're doing. There's so much more that is coming your way. So for today, we're going to be ending the live video here. We've said a whole lot, talked about, how these religious leaders convey misinformation using the ignorance, of the people. So once people become enlightened, look at the societies that are gaining momentum in enlightenment every day. So it's time for Africa to wake up. And I'm happy that some Africans are waking up, but we need to intensify our efforts to convey the right kind of information and helping people to come out of religious slavery and neo-colonialism. So next in line, we're going to be talking about some Islamic, themes or some Islamic rules, regulations, or whatever that were taken from the Jewish scriptures. And what is the implication and how can we deconstruct all of those things? So thank you for watching. And I want to once again appreciate all those who have subscribed to this channel. Those of you watching, please share this video so that others can see it also, and it will be a blessing to them also. Thank you for subscription. We are 6,000 plus subscribers and over 1 million views. That means we are reaching more people with this information that we're giving, this enlightenment. It is very important that people get the right information. We have people from all over the world that are testifying that through this channel, through the Africa Enlightenment Center, they've been delivered from the bondage, of religion and, misinformation. From Uganda, people from South Africa, from all over the place, from the US and other places. You can support us to reach more people because people need to know. People like us were very religious people. But by the time we began to seek information, began to seek knowledge, we begin to discover that these things that were taught, for years were not true. And it's our duty to help others to gain this knowledge that we have gained so that they also can come out of religious slavery. So once again, thank you. And we will be cutting it here today. See you in the next live session. Bye-bye.